Hello, my name is Kristine. I'll be giving you my claim of fact speech tonight. So by quick show of hands, has anyone here fallen victim to, as a student, poor teaching at some point in time? Yes? Most of us have. Most of us have fallen victim to that. For me, the most prevalent time was in 7th grade. My math teacher at the time was the worst. He was awful. He used to seat us according to our grade. So you know when you walked in the door, if you were on the left-hand side, you were failing. And if you were on the right-hand side, you were sitting pretty A or a B. He upgraded our seating chart every week, so you knew at all times where you stood. When he would teach the subject, if you had any questions, you had to wait till the end, assuming there would be time at the end of the period to ask questions. And if you did, his favorite phrase was, well, did you read the book? Students complained, teachers complained, parents complained. There were petitions that went around to get him removed. We failed every single time. And the reason that we failed is because he was tenured. He was a tenured teacher at my middle school. Tenure. So what is this? According to Time Magazine, it is a perk reserved for the noblest of professions. Judges and professors are also entitled to tenure. So tonight I'm going to be arguing that tenure is having a negative impact on our education system. The first point I'm going to make is that it is costly and really difficult to remove poorly performing teachers. Second, I want to talk about how the teacher tenure places the importance of the profession on the amount of time spent at an institution rather than the quality of education being taught. And lastly, it creates a sense of complacency in the profession. So tenure was started in the early 1900s mostly to protect women because they were being fired for being teachers, for getting pregnant, or getting married, things like that. So they brought that into account. And that's why they came up with teacher tenure. But nowadays, it's got a whole different meaning. Teacher tenure is costly and difficult to remove teachers. According to the New Teacher Project, they did an experiment, or they researched 12 schools. It was a school district back east, and they surveyed and studied these schools, and they found that 81% of administrators and 58% of teachers teaching in these schools felt that there was a tenured teacher who was delivering poor instruction in the school. And that's a lot. That's a lot of the people in that district teaching. Furthermore, on February 11th in 2010, LA Weekly investigated the Los Angeles Unified School District, and they found that they spent $3.5 million trying to remove 7 teachers for poor instruction. $3.5 million. And on average, each case, for each teacher took 5 years, and they only succeeded in removing 4 out of the 7 teachers. Another point is unethical teachers. So not only is it really costly to remove teachers for doing a bad job, it's also really hard just to actually remove them once you have like a just cause, which is something that's unethical, illegal, immoral, something like that. It would take a long time still to remove them. In Florida, there's a teacher that remained in her classroom for about a year, despite the fact that she threw books at her students and she demanded her students to call her Miss God. In Connecticut, there was a teacher that was only placed on suspension for 30 days, and what she did is she helped her class cheat on the standardized test, which is kind of a big deal because that's how they measure the quality of education being taught, is through these standardized tests, and she helped her students cheat so she could be rated higher. And then here in California, there was a school district that spent $8,000 to remove a teacher who preferred to show R-rated movies instead of reading the books. So it makes it really hard to remove these teachers that aren't doing their job. The second point I want to talk about is how tenure places an importance on the amount of time spent at an institution rather than the type of information and education being taught. And what that is the teacher tenure contract has this clause called LIFO. I don't know if you guys, anyone here works in food and heard of FIFO, which is first in, first out. So for the teachers, it's last in, first out. So if you were the most recently hired teacher in a school district and budget reforms, you better believe you're going to be the first teacher to get a pink slip. So this is the bigger issue for lower income schools because their turnover rate is typically the highest. So they're getting new teachers and they're getting laid off, and they're getting new teachers and they're getting laid off. So their answer to meet halfway with this issue was layoff caps, and that was established in 2010. And what that is they capped each school like, okay, you only get 5 layoffs. And then once they hit their max, they move to the next school. However, higher income schools didn't necessarily always meet the cap. I don't know, and then there's a lawsuit more recently called Vergara versus California. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. And what that is, it was students and parents versus the state, and they challenged the dispute or the dismissal statutes, the LIFO, and permanent employment. Teachers were being offered tenure after just 16 months, and that's not really long enough to know that they can do a good job teaching. They won, and then in August of last year, the California Teachers Association went ahead and filed for an appeal of the decision. And lastly, tenure can create a sense of complacency in the profession. So if you're already getting X, why would you try harder to still get just X? There's no reason for you to do better. Like, why buy the cow if you're getting the milk for free? According to a Northwestern University study, they found that non-tenured teachers are doing a better job at inspiring and preparing students than tenured teachers are. So, as you can see, based on these examples, tenure is drastically negatively affecting education today. It's hard and really expensive to remove bad teachers. The importance is not placed on the performance of teaching, it's placed on the seniority, and teachers become comfortable and there's no reason to try harder. Thank you. Am I supposed to stay standing?
No, go sit down. You're fine. Not a problem. All right, I'd skip the audience survey at the beginning and start with your example. That'll save you a little bit of time. You get to the proposition, it's clearly stated. There's a good layout of what the contents of the speech are going to be, although your first two supporting points are phrased in kind of a complicated way, and I still think they need to be simplified a little bit. The third one, though, got to the point pretty essentially, and that was phrased fine. Controversy on the subject, there's a little bit of background information that you provide. That's okay. The notion that this is a widespread problem, you've got a little bit of data on this. I think probably the problems with the schools are attributable to a lot of things. The more substantial you could show that it is related to a lack of teacher accountability, I think that would make your argument a little bit more controversial. The signposting in the body of the speech was pretty good and easy to follow. Your explanations on the secondary points are fine. Like I said, it's just the phrasing is a little complicated. You did a good job signposting those points as you got to them. I thought on the first point there was a lot of examples that you had, and there was one piece of statistical information about the frequency with which people encounter a teacher who's tenured that it represents some kind of problem. Again, I think that data is still a little abstract, but it does go to the point that there appears to be some level of problem here. The example of the 7 teachers in the LA Unified School District is an interesting one when it comes to cost issues. I do think that there wasn't as clear an explanation that the reason that they were having the problem was because of the tenure rules. It may very well have been that's probably something that needs to be highlighted a little bit more in the quotes. And one of the problems is that I think we're getting paraphrases of quotes, and sometimes it's better if you just get the direct information there. The lawsuit on the second point, I think, is background information. It doesn't really advance your claim. It just gives us another piece of information that talks about how complicated this is. On the third point, your only support consists of a rhetorical question. Why would you bother to do this? Buy the cow if you're getting the milk for free sort of thing. And then kind of a very generic quote about the effectiveness of newer teachers who are not tenured, which I'm not exactly sure demonstrates that the tenured teachers are problematic. It might simply demonstrate that the newer teachers are more enthusiastic, haven't gone through the grinder enough yet to know what a bunch of sad sacks their students are in the first place. I don't know, something along those lines. So, like I said, the problem with it is it's a good generic quote, but it's not very convincing on that particular point, and I think you need to develop that more. All right, and the presentation was very nice. Thank you. All right. Alex, you're going to be next, please.